So in case you haven't seen, maybe you're not from America or what have you, but President Trump basically just brokered a peace deal between Israel, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, as well as the nation of Bahrain. Now, obviously you have your typical reactions from leftists who would hate just about anything he does, but it was very interesting to see some of the Arab reactions over on the other side of the world as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of those specifically. In this clip, you'll hear a Yemeni Houthi politician basically give his interpretation of the deal, his response to the UAE specifically in their peace agreement with Israel. And yeah, you'll basically just hear what he says and his overall attitudes. Let's go ahead and roll the clip.
همین کار خبیث و علنی که امارات انجام داد این باعث سکوت نمیشه از ملت یمن، چون امروز امارات داره با ما میجنگه و ما حق داریم که یه حرفی بزنیم یا یه چیزی بزنیم، حتی بجنگیم دیگه، حق مشروعه، دفاع از نفس.
یعنی اونا اومدن الان دارن تو یمن میجنگن
و آنها اومدن امروز در حال جنگیدن به یمن. رزمندگان یمن، مجاهدین یمنی، همین که چند ماه پیش خود رهبر انقلاب یمن گفت اسرائیل میزنیم، ما موشک ها داریم امروز تا برسیم به اسرائیل و اسرائیل میزنیم و صهیونیستی ها میزنیم. و امروز ما هم میگیم امروز امارات همون اسرائیل دوم در منطقه شده. این حرفا خود امارات امروز علنا میگفت ما با اسرائیل اتحادیه کردیم، ما با اسرائیل یکیم. این امروز الحمدلله امکانات داریم، موشک ها داریم و موشک های بالستیک که 1500 کیلومتر 2500 کیلومتر مجنح داریم، همون قدس، موشک های قدس که الحمدلله به قول قوه الهی ما قبل از جنگ یک کشور مستضعف بوده، ولی از این جنگ به حول قوه الهی استفاده کردیم از نقطه ضعف به نقطه قوه.
Only through an ideology like Islam would you have a man calling for the decimation and complete wiping off of the map of two nations that come to a peace agreement. Now, while the critique, or I guess you could even say more than a critique, of Jews and Christians, unbelievers, is pretty standard for Islam, we definitely don't see as much of those internal conflicts as much in comparison to the mainstream opposition that they have with Jews and Christians. And so what exactly is the dilemma here regarding this peace deal? Well, obviously the best way to settle it, the best way to figure out if making this deal with Israel was the right move, is to look at Islam's most trusted sources. And so let's see what we find when we look at some of these. In Surah 861, we see that the Quran permits Muslims to accept a treaty from the unbelievers whom they are fighting. But if they incline to peace, you also incline to it, and put your trust in God. Verily, he is the all-hearer, the all-knower. Looking at another commentary here from Ibn Abbas, it says, and if they incline to peace, if the Banu Qurayza incline to and desire peace, incline you also to it and desire it, and trust in Allah in relation to their breaking or honoring of treaties. Lo, he is the hearer of what they say, the knower of their breaking and honoring of treaties. And so just looking at these sources, we can see that striking these peace deals are pretty standard within Islam. So what exactly is the problem? We have the UAE, we have Israel, and Bahrain, which obviously aren't all best friends. They weren't before, and it's going to take some time before they even could possibly get there now. They weren't militarily fighting each other, but tensions were obviously there, and they said, hey, we want to strike this peace deal. And so what exactly is the issue? What is the hurdle that is causing this Yemeni Houthi politician to want to decimate them? Well, as usual, the sources just don't know when to quit. And so if we keep reading, we'll see that there are other statements regarding peace deals within Islam that don't fit with what I've just read to you. So let's keep going. Surah 47:35. So be not weak and ask for peace from the enemies of Islam while you are having the upper hand. God is with you and will never decrease the reward of your good deeds. So we can see here that as long as Muslims are the dominant party, as long as they have the upper hand, as long as they are the ones in power, seeking a peace deal is not going to be on the table. Now, obviously, that sounds quite different from what I just read to you. And looking at the tafsir of Ibn Abbas, we can also see that it says, so do not falter, do not weaken, O believer, upon fighting the disbelievers and cry out for peace. And it is said this means, for Islam before fighting, when you will be the uppermost, when you are the victorious and the ultimate consequence will be in your favor. And Allah is with you. He helps you to defeat your enemy, and he will not grudge the reward of your actions, and he will not diminish the works in which you engage during jihad. Looking at some more commentary here, it says, so do not falter, do not be weak, and do not call for peace. That is to say, a truce with the disbeliever should you encounter them, when you have the upper hand. And so given these contradictory statements, Muslims obviously have to do something about this in order to maintain the fact that the Quran does not contradict itself. So how do they go about this? How do they solve it? Well, much like how the politician wanted to solve the issue of Israel and the UAE striking a deal by simply wiping them off the map, so Muslims historically have wanted to do the same thing regarding the text through what is known as abrogation, in which they overrule one past revelation with another so that there's no contradiction left as a result. And that's exactly what we see going on between these two verses. And Muslims have openly admitted this as well. Going back to that same article, we can see some of their own admissions regarding why abrogation is used and what its purpose is. The principle on which the theory of abrogation is based is unacceptable, being contrary to the clear teachings of the Quran. A verse is considered to be abrogated when the two cannot be reconciled with each other. In other words, when they appear to contradict each other. But the Quran destroys this foundation when it declares that no part of it is at variance with another. Surah 482. Will they not then meditate on the Quran? And if it were from any other than Allah, they would have found it in many a discrepancy. Apart from the fancifulness of this assertion, which calls to mind the image of a human author correcting, on second thought, the proofs of his manuscript, deleting one passage and replacing it with another, there does not exist a single reliable tradition to the effect that the Prophet ever declared a verse of the Quran to have been abrogated. At the root of the so-called doctrine of abrogation may lie the inability of some early commentators to reconcile one Quranic passage with another, a difficulty which was overcome by declaring that one of the verses in question had been abrogated. This arbitrary procedure also explains why there is no unanimity whatsoever among the upholders of the doctrine of abrogation as to which and how many Quran verses have been affected by it. And furthermore, as to whether this alleged abrogation implies a total elimination of the verse from the context of the Quran, or only a cancellation of the specific ordinance or statement contained in it. And so, in an attempt to overrule supposed contradicting passages, Muslims have actually ended up vilifying the Quran even more and showing that it's not truly a divinely inspired book. Now, many have recognized this and have tried to assert that regarding these two specific verses, these two specific passages talking about peace deals, that there's actually a way to understand them both in relation to each other that doesn't require any type of abrogation or an overruling of one over the other. And so let's go ahead and see what they try to do there. And what they'll basically say is that in Surah 861, whereas it's encouraging Muslims to make peace, this is within the context of Muslims being within the minority, with the unbelievers having the majority hold on the population, similar to the stages of jihad as well. Whereas in Surah 47:35, we basically see how Muslims, when they're in the majority, do not have to call for peace, do not have to call for any type of reconciliation or resolution because they're in the majority, they have the power. And so it all depends on the circumstances, and Muslims have therefore understood this, understood these two passages not to be contradicting, but instead to be complementing one another based on the given situation. And while this may do well to help reconcile the passages, it doesn't exactly help to strengthen the Muslims' case that any peace deal that they strike is going to be one that will be legitimate or actually held for the time being. So based off of these verses in this commentary, the Houthi politicians should really have nothing to worry about because everything is all circumstantial based on who has the power. And so while the UAE may be striking this deal with Israel now, once they maybe can get into that position, then they'll turn their backs on them and simply forget the deal because now they have the majority. Now they have the strength needed to be able to go their own way. Now, I'm not saying the UAE will actually do this. I'm not saying that this is their intent, but I'm just merely posing a dilemma for Muslims themselves based off of their own sources. Because again, they have the supposed contradiction, but in their attempt to harmonize it, they end up just burying their own picture of integrity. Because again, it's all based on power. It's not based on morality or doing what's right just because it's right. And so we'll see how this plays out regarding this deal. But I just wanted to make a quick video surrounding that because I know it's been a very hot thing in the news lately. And so let me know what you guys thought of the video. Be sure to like, share the video, subscribe, and let me know, have you heard about this deal? Trump was nominated for like 2 Nobel Peace Prizes because of it. So some big stuff going on. But nevertheless, it's very interesting, as I said in the beginning, to see the Muslim reactions. And again, it's funny how despite all the, thousands of years since these things have happened, things are still saying the same regarding the sources and how Muslims act based on the tenets of their own ideology. So thank you guys for tuning in. More stuff soon, and I'm excited to keep going. Thank you.